Before you tonight, we have the continuation of the Harvest Hills preliminary plat from the February 1st council meeting of this year. Just wanted to remind the council of the property being discussed, outlined in the center of your screen, about 7.45 acres in size on the east side of Mountain View Road at the intersection of East 3rd and Mountain View. So originally we had three components of this proposal before you tonight. We had a comprehensive plan land use amendment to change the land use designation for the property. And that was adopted. Council conducted a public hearing and adopted Resolution 2016-01. We also had a rezoning component of the proposal to rezone a portion of the property. And that was adopted by Council on February 1st under Ordinance 2016-01. And then we had a preliminary plat, which is tabled from that February 1st meeting to have staff work with the applicant to address some on-street parking concerns within the subdivision. The preliminary plat proposal was for 22 twin home lots and one neighborhood business lot of 2.2 acres in size. Looking at the comp plan designation, what Council adopted was the change from neighborhood conservation to a combination of suburban commercial and auto-urban residential. And then in the zone change, we went from the R2 moderate density residential zone to a combination of neighborhood business with a 2.2 acre parcel and medium density residential, which is our R3 designation. Brings us to the preliminary plat. So we had 22 twin home lots. Those ranged in size from a little over 4,000 square feet to about 6,500 square feet in size. The minimum lot size for the R3 zone was 3,250 square feet. And then we had the neighborhood business lot, 2.2 acres in size. Major concern for the council at the night was the 3rd Street extension being a collector designation through our thoroughfare plan of the comprehensive plan, which designates that as a 34-foot wide street section, includes 2 5-foot wide bike lanes on both sides of the street with no on-street parking. This was the preliminary plat. You can see the extension of 3rd Street. West side is Mountain View Road here. We've got the 2.2 acre neighborhood business parcel, and then you have the 22 twin home parcels within the R3 zone here. Looking at our thoroughfare plan, this is what designates the roads within the city, and as you can see, the dashed line in green there represents a future collector designation, and that's why the applicant's required to construct to the collector standard for the 3rd Street extension. Just to show you what the collector detail looks like, once again, 34-foot wide road section with 2 5-foot wide bike lanes on both sides, 2 12-foot wide travel lanes, then you have the tree lawns and the sidewalks on either end. There is an option under the current street standards within our code to allow on-street parking. It's just that the roadway would need to be expanded by 9 to 10 feet to allow parallel parking on one side of the street. And just so everybody's clear, just wanted to go through the prior actions that we've been through. We conducted the public hearing on February 1st of this year, closed the public hearing. Council ended up deliberating on the proposal. The preliminary plat was tabled, ended up directing staff to work with the applicant. The concern was no on-street parking within the subdivision and where were guests and visitors able to park should they frequent some of the residences within that subdivision. Staff ended up meeting with the applicant and working with them to develop an on-street parking proposal. The applicant's proposal before you tonight includes 9 on-street parking spaces on the north side of 3rd Street for your consideration. And with that, staff recommends the council approve the preliminary plat for Harvest Hills Edition with the following 3 conditions recommended by staff. These are all coming from the Public Works Department. That the applicant widen 3rd Street from 70 feet to 80 feet near its intersection with Mountain View Road, and this is in order to accommodate the left-hand turn lane at that intersection. And then the applicant enter into a new memorandum of understanding and development agreement which allows the deferral of the construction of Jansen Street, including all underground utilities, to future plat additions to the east. And the applicant shall provide 9 on-street parking spaces on 3rd Street consistent with their proposal. Should this be approved, we'd like to adopt the proposed reasoned statement of relevant criteria and standards that's attached to your packet tonight. And I'd certainly be able to answer any questions that you might have about this.
A couple of things, just for the general public to know, this is not a public hearing, because that did take place, in fact, February 1st, so this was something that was tabled and was brought back off the table tonight for further discussion. A question I've got for you, Mike, is have you got any kind of a drawing or anything of where these 9 parking spots are? They're going to be, is there any kind of a, there's 9 on-street parking spaces. Do we have any kind of a visual to show folks that?
It's my understanding that they're going to be located on the north side, adjacent to the neighborhood business parcel, but the applicant certainly could come up and try to answer that
I
question.
think that would be a good question, because that was a heavy discussion during that February 1st meeting, so I think that'd be appropriate, Mike.
Scott may be able to help me on this in case I stumble, but on the neighborhood business portion, since the interior of that has not been designed yet, the access points aren't fixed. And so to design the parking at this point as a fixed portion on the north side of the street, we may end up running into a situation where we say, well, here's the parking, and then find that we have to shift it around on account of the access points. And for that reason, we haven't tried to come up with a fixed location for those spots, because they'll essentially be determined after the design of the neighborhood business portion, and those access points are fixed.
Okay, question here is, I don't know if I got any juice. The
goal would be to have the
about-
9 spots along the neighborhood business portion, though, on the north side.
These things.
Here's Jim's got one.
This one's work.
Okay, right along here from, they'd be somewhere from here to down here, is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my assumption, is that they would be in there.
In this area?
At the same time, not knowing the final design there,
No, but
it would have to work within those access points. But yeah,
those are
that's
the
our
2
goal.
Okay, those are the 2 points you're talking about.
Phil, if there was no access there, how many spots would fit there, end to end?
Oh,
If there
that's
was
a
no
Scott
driveway,
question.
maybe Scott knows that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, at some point, we have to be careful that we're not putting parking next to 3rd Street, so we work with Public Works to bring that back. We could,
Yeah, Mountain View.
yeah, Mountain View, I'm sorry. So, really, we need an access point to the neighborhood
Right,
business.
but if there wasn't one, how many total feet of availability do you have there?
We could probably get in 10 parking spaces without an access, maybe 10 and a half, put in some compacts or something. But it really is tight to get our access and parking in there. We looked at it. That's really the maximum we could squeeze in and gain access to the commercial site.
Yeah, it seems pretty tight. 1.5 parking spaces for the access seems kind of skimpy.
Yeah. Well, the access would be 24 to 30 feet wide, and so a parking space is 23 feet.
They're saying 23 feet for a parking
Yeah.
space.
Jim Les has got a point he wants to make over.
If I may, just a point of clarification. As 3rd Street approaches Mountain View, there will be a street widening with a center, a left turn pocket as you approach the intersection. So where that taper begins typically is where parking would end, so it would be set back some distance from the intersection. From there on back towards the east is where we typically see parking.
That was the difference where Mike had brought up, this from 70 feet to 80 feet, that was the change
That's where
we were
that
talking about.
transition goes from 70
Okay.
to 80. Well, that's in the right-of-way, but in that area, the road itself will widen to accommodate a left turn pocket. Typically, you would end the parking at the beginning of that transition.
Relative to the rest of the street section, is that still going to be what we saw the last time with the separated bike lane sidewalk to the south side?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
none of that changes?
So the south side stays the same as what you would see, and then the north side, we extend that right-of-way out and push the parking out into that area. So yeah, we've looked at a lot of different options, but we didn't want to set it in stone in a council meeting and then be locked into something that isn't workable for the commercial site.
So would you say worst-case scenario, if the way things work out, it ended up 8, that would probably be as much as it would have to be cut down if there was some contingency that went on there?
Well, no, I believe we can get 9 in there, but it's
Just don't know how there'd be spaced.
right. The spacing, whether we put some to the west or to all of it to the east of
Catherine?
access.
I think you're addressing what we're trying to get to is the reason the request was to have the additional parking was for the people that are living there, and I know they don't want it stuck. They don't want to lose it, like it's too far away from them. I know that that's what you're trying to make sure not happen, so that's why the looking for more specific, thank you, on location. I think that's what it.
Well, ideally, it would be in the middle section of
Yeah.
the commercial lot towards the eastern side of it. But depending, if we do change the access, like I said, we don't want to, hamstring the project just because of that.
Dan, did you have a?
Yeah, for Mike, can you go back to the conditions? I think it's slightly different than what's in the packet here. Okay, well, it's not that different, but on the third one, we're only talking about shall provide 9 on-street parking spaces on Third Street. Now, anything that happens here, does that affect the next plat, or the development to the east? Or would that be new conditions should something happen up there that we would want to require parking up there as well?
It would just be for this plat. Likely it'd be another plat that would move forward further to the east, and the council would be able to review that at
Which
that
would be a
time.
So we don't have to have anything explicit in here saying there may be more. Something hit me that, we might not be stepping far enough ahead, but as long as we figure we're going to have conditions on the next section as well, then I'm okay with it.
Well, that'd be a new public hearing.
Yeah, that'll
So
be a new process, new plat, so the council will have the opportunity at that point in time to impose those conditions if they so choose.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I'd make a motion, Your Honor.
okay.
I'd make a motion that we go ahead and approve the preliminary plat for Harvest Hills Edition with the 3 conditions presented by staff, and I don't have to read them because they're up there on the screen.
Okay.
And do we adopt the
Yep.
reason statement later, or can we do it in this same motion?
Should be able to do it in the same
Yeah,
motion.
we can do the
I
whole
would go
thing.
ahead and also adopt the reason statement and the relevant criteria and standards as presented.
I would second that rather broad motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Dan and a second by Jim to approve the preliminary plat for Harvest Hills Edition with the 3 conditions recommended by staff and the adoption of the proposed reason statement or of relevant criteria and standards. Everybody understand that? I'll start with you, Catherine.
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Move on. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Oh.